All right, good afternoon. My name is Todd Kibbe. I'm the Assistant Chief for Patrol Operations for the Seattle Police Department.
Can you spell that for us, please?
It's spelled Kibbee. With me is Captain Agard from the North Precinct, Aagard. She's the North Precinct Commander. So we're going to talk today about the series of pattern robberies that's been occurring since late last month. First of all, I want to acknowledge the fact that all these robberies of our students coming home from school is impacting families. It's impacting a lot of stress, it's giving a lot of stress to families of our students. And I want to assure the people that the Seattle Police Department is very aware of this. We acknowledge that, and we're doing what we can to mitigate that. So we'll start off with kind of what we know. Right now, as of the 19th of September, we're tracking right around 14 different street robberies of students in the North Seattle area. And those are students at both public and private high schools. There's some common factors to all these street robberies. Again, for the most part, they are targeting students coming home from school. They are usually driving stolen vehicles. The suspects are driving stolen vehicles, and they're coming upon either one student or two students in a small group, and they are either jumping out of a car or coming up on the victims from behind, surprising them. There have been uses of force. There's been guns displayed. There has been some violence against the victims here, and generally they are looking for phones, iPhones. They're looking for AirPods, other kind of earphones, any other kind of personal property that these students have on their person. That is what's getting stolen, and then basically the suspects jump in a car and go away. And like I mentioned, we have recovered 2 stolen cars that we believe to be part of this ongoing pattern robbery series. We're processing those for evidence. Our investigation section has this as a priority, and we're trying to get as much video and much evidence as we can to try to identify the people involved. And that is actually a request that I can make here. If any citizen out there has video, has evidence, or anything that they believe is pertinent to these investigations, please call the Seattle Police Department tip line, 206-233-5000, and we'll have someone get the information from you. Again, these are primarily students. The time frame is usually right around between like 2 o'clock and about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The majority of these since the 19th have been over in the Ballard area of Seattle. Yesterday we had 3 more, which switched over to Roosevelt area and also the area around Blanchette High School. And so this is happening kind of all over here in the north end. And so Captain Agard has devoted resources to the schools to try to prevent this from happening. Although, as we all know, there's, I believe, at least 20 schools in the north end of Seattle that have kids of these age that are possible victims. So it's hard for us to manage all of those schools, but we are devoting resources to try to identify and track down the suspects. As far as the investigation goes, we are following up on many leads. Investigators, again, have recovered several vehicles that they believe belong to the suspects, are processing those vehicles for fingerprints and other evidence.
Do you have any sense as to why some of these students are being targeted? Do you have a sense that there's a student in these schools that's saying, you know, these guys have money and they live in a nice place?
I have not heard that. In general, from what I can understand, most of these students are walking alone. These are crimes of opportunity. And that's really all they are. We don't have any instance or any kind of suspicion that I know of any kind of assistance from other people in schools.
Any brief kidnappings going on? Students being brought into the car to release their passcodes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I believe in the first couple around the 19th of October, that did occur for very short periods of time. Again, the cell phone doesn't mean much without a passcode, right? And so most of these robberies, the victims are being basically made to give up the passcode to the phones.
What communication is going on between the Seattle Police Department and local school districts?
And so we are in contact with Seattle Public Schools to get information out how the students to be safe. On Monday of this past week, we conducted an online virtual training, kind of a crime prevention training for parents. And that's the other important part. I want, speaking to the parents now, both Captain Agard and myself are parents. We have to, unfortunately, have to teach our kids that they have to be aware of their surroundings. I know it's very hard to take, especially teenagers, away from their phones, and tend to kind of look at their phones as they're walking, put their headphones on, especially after a long day at school. We have to try to get them out of that habit, so I'd ask that the parents really have kind of difficult conversations, unfortunately, with their children to make them understand how you have to be aware of the surroundings. You know, simple things like, you know, walking against the flow of traffic so you can see what's coming at you as opposed to what's behind you. You know, walking in groups of 2 or 3 as opposed to just walking singly. And again, not putting up the hoodie, the earphones or AirPods, things like that, and just kind of walking with your head down. Again, the situational awareness, unfortunately, is something we have to start teaching our kids.
You said extra resources. What can you elaborate on that? What kind of extra resources are being put toward this?
Yeah, so from the North Precinct alone, we've had some of our patrol officers are using some augment overtime to supplement our ability to be around the schools.
What
With
about your
that,
suspects?
With extra patrols in the area, can you tell us where, and is that the mobile precinct, and what does this look like?
So we have deployed the mobile precinct to the Ballard area. As far as where, you know, like I said, there's multiple schools that unfortunately we have to cover, and so we're just trying to figure out the best way to put our officers in the right place.
Does that mean the mobile precinct was taken away from Jefferson in the Central District and moved over here, or
No.
are there multiple?
There are multiple mobile precincts,
Okay,
yes.
just wanted to clarify.
What about
Like
your,
I see a mobile precinct right now actually in the Ballard area, but it's closer to Golden Gardens. Why wouldn't that be closer to the schools?
You know, we're trying to switch it around. Again, these incidents are happening all over the north end. So there's schools in Ballard, there's schools in Lake City and things like that. So we will try to move it around as best we can, but unfortunately, we don't have a great way of figuring out where these robberies will happen next. We're just trying to maximize our area that we're covering.
what about your suspects? Are you dealing with the same set of people? Is it multiple people?
Well, most of these robberies are at least 2 or 3 suspects. We have not identified any suspects, so I can't give any specifics about who they are. I think we believe at this point, I'm comfortable saying that it's probably the same group of kids, and I say kids, kind of late teens, that are doing these, but we don't have a sense right now of any organization or any kind of specific group.
Do the descriptions, though, match up from one incident to the other or every other incident?
Yeah, the descriptions are roughly the same. You know, it's kids, you know, between 17 and 18, late teens, in groups, some wearing masks, some aren't, that are basically preying on other students coming home from school.
There was another attack Monday in the Mount Baker neighborhood. A young girl, same thing, attacked, phone, and people sped off. Is that related to this, or is that separate?
That's something we're still investigating, and that's a good point. I think, you know, obviously we're focused right now on incidents that are happening in the north end of Seattle, but there's vulnerable people and students of this age in all other parts of Seattle and in this region. So I would urge parents, even if you don't live in the north end, or not north part of Seattle, if you live in South Seattle, Magnolia, wherever it may be, please, again, have those conversations with your students, because there's nothing really to prevent these crimes from traveling to other parts of our city.
And on what Bridget was just saying, a lot of these parents feel like they've been let out in the dark from the school district. They feel like they're not getting enough information from you all, and they've taken it upon themselves to create a crime map because they don't feel like the information is there, and they're worried that parents who are maybe not active in these Facebook groups, parents who aren't, you know, so in touch with these little community pockets, are going to be left out and not reporting. What do you say to those parents right now?
Well, I would echo the concern that there may be unreported robberies out there. You know, again, that was part of our efforts on Monday with our crime prevention folks, is to kind of get some safety tips for students. As far as the information from the department, I mean, that's why we're here today. We are trying to address this as best we can. I think, again, as a parent, you're worried about the safety of your child to and from school. And that's why Captain Agard and other precinct commanders are trying to adjust as many resources as we can to that effort.
Are you telling the students not to resist?
That's a difficult question. I think every situation is different. Obviously, if, you know, again, every situation is different. It's hard to do all the different permutations of what may happen. But if someone's coming towards you and you have the opportunity to run, I think that's the best option. But, you know, generally resistance, especially when there's there's a firearm involved, is not advised.
Do you have any reason to believe that the teens that are doing this are students and they're attacking their classmates?
The only thing we have right now is the age, so they could possibly be students, but we have no basically hard information that they are currently students.
Are all the students targeted all male? Are they female? Do we have a mix? We've heard largely it's just a bunch of young boys?
Yeah, it's generally a bunch of young boys right now, but I think that the key point, if you're a parent, is that your child walking alone, you know, could be a victim here, and you want to give them some tools. Again, these are hard conversations for a parent to have with their preteen or teenage daughter or son, but they just have to be aware of their surroundings. If they can get a ride, that's great. If they can walk in groups of 3 or 4, that's even better.
I spoke with a mom of a victim last week. Her son and his friend were attacked. They called 911. Nobody showed up. What do you say to families like that who just feel like they're being left out in the dark, like she said?
Well, first of all, I would apologize if no one showed up. I don't know that particular case and why we didn't show up. We are taking this as a priority right now, and so if someone calls 911, they should get an officer to the scene to take the information from victims. So if this happens again, I would urge people to call 911 and we will respond.
Okay, we'll take one more question, you guys.
Can you just talk about the numbers? We had 4 incidents, now we're talking about 14. What's happened in the last few days that we've seen this jump, or more people coming forward?
Yeah, I think that, again, I went back to the 19th of September, right? So this is an amalgamation of all those different cases. And so I think right now being reported, I think since last Thursday, I think a lot of ones were reported, so I think that's what people think there's only been that many, but we're kind of taking it back since the 19th of September, so that's why that's increasing the number here. But in general, again, students are being targeted, walking home from school, for their phones, for their other personal property. And so as much as we can ask for the public's assistance and parents' assistance to try to shrink the pool of possible victims, I think the better off we can, and it will be. And again, Sergeant Agard and her officers are out there trying to make a difference and stepping up to basically try to protect the kids of North Seattle.
Are any of these stolen items ending up online or pawn shops or anything like that?
That's part of the investigation. I don't have any comment on that right now.
Sergeant, do you have anything to say?
Captain.
Captain, excuse me.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I think that's it.
No.
Thank you.
Are you, I just wanted to ask, are you tracking these phones after they're taken, or is that possible?
Tracking the what?
The phones, like,
Or
there's a
AirPods.
Find
Oh, I
My
see.
Eye.
Yeah, again, that's part of the investigation, and we are going down those roads, but I don't have any permanent or actually specific information about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That in the